You know, I gotta say, the brand new Wingsuit is probably one of the coolest items which Tycoon has added in a very long time, and it just has so much tech and strategies that you could do with it. Therefore, in today's video, guys, I will be showing you all of that. And by the way, I would really appreciate it if you subscribed. We're on the way to 50,000 subscribers. But before we start, I'd like to quickly walk you guys through this thing's base mechanics, because it does actually have two, which I am quite aware of. One of them is whenever you're actually diving down, there's two ways to land. So the way in which I see a lot of people will land quite a lot of the time is just simply diving down and waiting until your head ends up hitting the ground. And whenever that happens, what essentially takes place is that you fall down and you'll basically stand for a few seconds. However, what I bet you guys didn't know is that there's actually one more efficient strategy which you could use to land without getting stunned at all and barely taking any damage. So right here, I'm gonna try to efficiently do this in this area right here, for example. So as I'm diving down, what I'm gonna want to do is before I hit the ground, I'm going to press jump, and then I land this way and I can immediately start fighting the person right away. It is a much more efficient method to do it, and on average you're not going to be taking as much damage with it. Now, actually moving into some strategies, firstly I'm going to be starting off with the C4. However, it does work a little bit differently than some other C4 strategies in this game. You're going to want to attach the C4 to your teammate. However, unfortunately, as far as I know, whenever you hit the ground, you don't actually end up exploding the C4. So what you're going to need to actually end up doing in this situation is you're going to need a friend that of course is going to be exploding the C4 for you, which means that your friend kinda has to be somewhat near you. However, if you can make this work, then you can do some crazy things with this, and the agility that you can give towards this explosion is going to be much better than really any missile in the game. Now the next strat over here, which is a little weird, which I honestly don't understand why you guys would do, however it is there for you guys. You can actually get under the map by using the skydiving suit. I believe the physics are a little buggy right here, however you can actually end up getting in the back rooms. This isn't really too useful, however it is there for you guys to do if you really wish to do it. Now the next strategy included is going to be using the diving suit this time, and what you guys will actually be able to do with it is actually be a similar speed to most submarines in this game, and that is really useful since you can actually board submarines much more efficiently by using the strategy. The submarine is still on average going to be faster than you, however if you manage to cut it off in a right angle, then you're easily going to be able to catch up to it and get inside and just kill the driver. So that's another cool thing that you could do. Now the next strategy, which I also see people using quite a lot when it comes to the Wingsuit, is going to be using it for much more stealthy operations of getting on some people's boats. Because on average you're gonna just want to get a DeLorean or another vehicle or eject above the plane and then get in that way with the parachute. However, that is extremely slow and it's not that much of a surprise. However, if you have a teammate for you that just drops you down with a DeLorean or something very far away, well, you're able to literally get on top of the Sumworld much more efficiently. However, you do have to keep in mind that you're probably going to end up taking damage, so you kind of need to aim for the top of the head, or you're going to want to aim for the back of the Sumworld. Let me try to perform it right here. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do. It definitely takes some practice. However, if you manage to study it and get it done, then you can become really good when it comes to boarding people's ships. So right here, let me try to do it. Okay, we're gonna try this one more time. That's why I said, guys, this is kind of niche and it cannot work well consistently. However, if you do manage to do it right, like right here, then you should be fine. Except right here I ended up pushing the Sumworld, and the reason why that took place is because I have flight on. However, if I didn't have flight on, then you would be able to do this most of the time. Now the next strategy which I actually found is going to be using the oil tower, which nobody actually uses in this game. It doesn't really have that much of a use in the meta. However, if you are raiding someone and perhaps you need to get out of their base or maybe jump in the water or whatever, you can very easily just use the top of this tower to quickly get away. I think this is a pretty useful strategy which you can use. Just make sure not to spam space whenever you're doing it, or else you're not going to end up making it and just take infinite fall damage, or just end up dying in general. Now the next and also pretty obvious strat, which honestly a lot of you guys should be doing now, that completely replaces the previous quality of life that we used to use in this game, is going to be ejecting with the suit. So essentially, if you're just a plain player and you always use these vehicles, that's completely fine, because on average, if you do eject out of a plane, what you would have to do is kind of just get down on the ground and then just call it DeLorean, and the whole process is just kind of lengthy. However, if you're just having a dogfight and you know you're about to lose, well, you can just eject and just use this to actually get back to your base. I think from around this height, you should easily be able to pick up enough speed to get back to your base. Just make sure not to go down like this, because you're going to end up losing too much altitude. However, if you just go in a straighter line and just try to go a little slower, then you're gonna end up making it very easily. This can get you across the whole map with no issues, and I very much recommend you guys to start doing this instead of just calling it DeLorean. It's honestly just kind of boring waiting on the ground. Anyway guys, for the time being, that's basically all I have for you all in today's video. Do let me know in the comment section down below what you think about some of these tips, and I would like to actually hear what other ways do you guys utilize this suit in. I do think there's just so much tech to it, and there's always going to be new strategies coming out. But for now, these are more like the basic ones which you need to know about. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next one.